taking a pretty good bite out of that.
Yeah.
Those chips are pretty large.
But is it hard to make it so that it's even all the way, or it comes down to the middle?
Nope.
I think that would be hard.
Practice.
Oh my gosh.
I can feel it. You can hear the vibration. It's not round yet. There's still points up at the corner. So I know that I haven't quite got it totally round when I can hear that noise, but I'm getting close enough that I can.
I would think keeping the pressure even would be such a
It
challenge.
takes some practice.
So you don't get bumps and waves.
You get some of that. So one of the tricks is that I'm holding this against my hip. I've got this pretty well locked in. The tool rest won't let it go anywhere, and I move it by moving my legs.
Oh, really?
So I'm really,
Oh, okay.
some people call it dances with waves.
Ah.
It's my dancing move. And yeah, I can feel it fighting that, getting it round. But the other thing is, I don't know what I'm going to end up with for a shape just yet. I'm just getting it round to start with. That's pretty well round now. Okay, there's a little tear out, but that'll go away. And there's one little spot left that I didn't get round that I can just see with the flat from the bandsaw. So the other piece is that the bottom isn't flat.
It's an interesting wood grain there.
It's just maple. There's a guy out by Ghent that makes custom flooring. There, now that's pretty well flat. I'll get that bump out of there later. And what I need to know is, I want the chuck that's holding it is like this one, except I use this one when I was making tops for people. The chuck, when it's round, has a certain size, and that's the best grip that I'm going to get. So I know, because I said this when I started doing these today, that this is the right size. So if I can figure out an opening, a little further out. Yep, that'll work. If I make an opening that size so that I can then put the chuck jaws in when they open, they'll hold the bowl in place for me. So I know that. And then I go, okay, now I'm going to open up an opening on the bottom like this so the jaws can open. I need to leave a flat out here. I need to leave enough wood on the side so that I don't break it loose when I put the jaws in and they expand and that's too thin. It'll just snap the wood off. I can't do that. So I got to plan for that. And then I leave that foot, so now that changes the look of the bowl, so then I got to decide what I want the bowl to look like. Okay, so now I'm getting close. This is all torn up grain. I can't have that happen, so I got to clean that up. I got to decide if I want that rounded shape, if I want to do something different with it. I don't mind that, but I got to clean those cuts up.
What does that mean, that it's torn up grain?
Because the way this is, the grain runs this way,
Okay.
so it goes around, so I'm cutting across the grain, and then the end grain comes towards me, and I start plucking wood out of the end grain, and that's what tears that up. switch tools because that one's getting a little dull and I was having trouble getting it sharp. So we'll try this one. It's a little smaller, same kind of. Yeah, that feels good. But it's a little smaller and now it's vibrating. I heard that. But it's taking smaller chips too, so it should be a smoother cut. Yep, I don't see any of that torn out, pulled out end grain stuff. Now there's some bumps left. I get rid of the, no, I still got a tiny bit of that top edge where I didn't get the bandsaw mark out. Just at the very top.
You see?
So the guy that taught me to turn, Phil Holton, went to a class one time and came back with this magic thing he found called shear scraping that makes it so smooth. All you have to do is take a scraper that has, you know, we normally lay flat on the tool rest and it sort of grinds the wood away, tip it up on its side, and it shears through the wood and you get these tiny little wispy fibers that look like cotton. Those things. And that means it's really, you know, clean cut. And I'm switching from convex to concave, so I need a different shape. But it takes off all the bumps and ridges that get left by the gouge. And that's just for show. And so now it's ready to sand. I mean, that's where I would start sanding, but I'm not going to sand because as much dust as this creates, sanding would be a lot worse. So now what I got to do is hollow out that bottom back so that I've got a place to put this, that opening. And then because the jaws need to rest against a flat surface, they're milled flat, I've got to flatten that out. And then undercut, because the jaws are dovetailed. They'll wedge in and lock everything in tightly. And then because I know a turner is going to pick this up sometime, I have to do stuff on the bottom, because the first thing a turner does is turn your stuff over and look and say, can I see how you held it? Did you clean it up? Did you sand it? Did you do something pretty? So that's the first thing I got to deal with, is I know they're coming. I got to fix it. So So I often make that undercut thing look like a bead. Switch tools on here. Okay, so that little bead looks like, you know, just decorative, but it's actually what's going to hold the bowl on the chuck. So just by scraping, I get it pretty. Is I can use my tool, my tail stock. And that hole that the screw went into is still centered. And now it can't twist. If I get a little too aggressive, it can't say, "Yeah, coming out now." Well, it can, but I have to be. I won't say it can't. It has in the past. Okay. I got a switch doing something weird to me. There's a direction to cutting wood. If the wood is running the long way, like I'm making a pen or a baseball bat, if I cut uphill, it's like sharpening a pencil the wrong way. It'll just rip the wood apart. They tell me that when I do it the other way, I should be cutting the opposite direction. But at a certain point, when I just get started, I just cut. You know, I just try to get the material out. I'll finish later and it'll look better eventually. So one of the things I got to do before I get too far into it is I got to get the rim cleaned up, and then I got to decide how thick I want the bowl to be. And because these are probably going to end up actually being used as bowls, I got to leave them thicker. More artistic stuff, I can make them thin and you can see light through them, but people eat out of these, so I want to actually make them something they won't break when they carry them around. So here's the problem. I want to ride this bevel, this little metal part, that part that hit the grinder has to ride on the wood. I'm trying to follow the edge of the bowl in, and in order to make that point start where I need to, I'd have to start way over here. This is in the way. I could choose a different grind. That's why I have more than one tool. It's, you know, a little different shape. Now I got to start here. It's still in the way. So at a certain point, in order to make this work, we just have to depend on that little undercut to hold everything. So we'll get rid of that middle part first. Okay, so now what I want to do is turn the gouge around so that I can follow the bevel down into the wood. Backed up one. You stupid. You just want to back up. That's a little aggressive for a finish cut, but it gets the wood out of there in a hurry. Okay, it's fairly consistent up here. It's getting a little thicker down, and then there's a lot of wood left down lower. Excuse me. So one of the things that the screw hole does for me too is the depth. I know where to stop because I get down to the bottom, and then I have to, you know, when I get to where the drill bit stopped, I should be thin enough. I don't want to keep going, or I'm going to have a funnel, and I don't want a funnel. Close. I'm going to come in that corner. Turning the corner can be one of the harder things, and you sometimes have to have, especially this one, this little one some guy made for me. It's almost too blunt to cut, but it turns corners, and that's what it's meant for. So. It's not bad. That's getting pretty close. Now I just got to get the rest of that stuff out of the middle. When down pretty close, one more, this is the thing, turners always say this, one more cut, and then, yeah. Trying to get rid of the drill hole. So
Wow.
that's pretty close.
Yes.
So now all I want to do is get the ridges out that the gouge leaves, and I'll do that with a scraper. And the scraper, instead of riding on that bevel, just uses the edge, just that fine. You run it across the grinder, and it just takes out little shavings. As long as you don't push it in, that's the way a lot of us learn to use a scraper in shop class, which is sort of grind the wood out. That's not its purpose. And if the grain is torn up, and it is a little bit down on the bottom, then again, if I just lift it up on its edge and come across, it takes off these little tiny wispy shavings. So I know I'm cutting, but I'm cutting really fine. That's pretty close. That I'll be able to sand out, put a finish on. So hey ladies. So that's
Wow.
a bowl
Amazing.
in a short time. That's
It's
it.
amazing.
That's the finish I'll get without sanding, and then when I sand it, you get smoother.